Hello YouTube, this is ATSF Mahler here, and today I'd like to do a review of the Bachmann DCC equipped GP40. It is a standard line locomotive, one of Bachmann's standard locomotives, and its features is it has dual brass flywheels, built-in DCC decoder, and Easy Mate Mark II couplers. Now, I got this locomotive for $50, $50 or $60, I can't quite remember. It's a pretty cheap locomotive for a DCC equipped engine. I bought off of trainworld.com, and I feel this is a great value for a locomotive, with a locomotive that looks as nice as this one does, DCC equipped, and you can get it for $50, $60 depending on where you get it. Now, a little information on the prototype locomotive. A GP40 is a four-axle diesel-electric road switcher locomotive built by General Motors Electromotive Division, or EMD, between November 1965 and December 1971. It has an EMD 645 16-cylinder engine, turbocharged, rated at 3,000 horsepower. There are 1,221 GP40s built. Now, an interesting little fact about this locomotive was that Santa Fe actually only owned one GP40, and that was between 84 and 87, I think. The GP40 they lost the locomotive in a fiery crash. You can look that up if you want more information about it. But the locomotive's number was 2964, and this engine's number is 3501. So that's something that Bachmann didn't quite get right. If they wanted it to be exactly like Santa Fe's lone GP40, they would have numbered it 2964, not 3501. But I can get over it. Okay, now we'll look over some of the features of this locomotive. You see here, it's for a $60 locomotive, it is quite well detailed actually. I mean, it's not intricately detailed, but it's detailed pretty well. You have all of your door panels here, the radiator grills and the air intake grills are nicely done. The trucks are real nicely done. I looked up some prototype photos and some really early photos when 2964 got repainted. It did have a bright silvery color on its trucks. It kind of darkened over years, but the truck paint is accurate. The painting under magnification is mostly clear and legible. There isn't any smudging. Well, check that. There's just a bit of smudging on the steps of the locomotive right here, but that's the only place I can really see it at. And the paint is quite well done on this locomotive, except for I feel that the Santa Fe logo on the side of the locomotive is a bit undersized. The handrails are real nicely done. They're not thin. They're thin, but they're not all fragile or anything. They're real durable. The handrails look prototypical. They're real nicely done. Now, I don't know quite what's up with this pilot right here. It has this little gap under it. I don't know what's up with that. But like I said, this locomotive for a $60 locomotive. It's not intricately detailed. It's not Athearn Genesis type detail or anything like that. But this is a quite well done locomotive for a locomotive of its price range. And I feel that this locomotive is one of Bachmann's serious entries in model railroading. This is a lot better than the old GP40 they used to make. This locomotive's been produced for quite a few years. Now we look under the locomotive. It has eight-wheel drive pickup, eight-wheel drive trucks, and these trucks are very well done. They're real sturdy, and they kind of spring back to center when you turn them like that. So these are really well done trucks. On the fuel tank has Bachmann's their logo and their DCC on board logo. This locomotive is weighted pretty good. It's heavy, but I do think it can be just a bit more heavier because it is the lightest locomotive that I have. And I feel that this locomotive needs to be a little heavier because sometimes it will kind of slip. It does have wheel slip under a really heavy load. So it's not going to pull a whole 40-car freight train by itself, but it does a pretty good job nonetheless. Like I said, details are really good. The only really downfall I see is the cooling fans. While the grills are well done, there's no cooling fans in there. That might look a little awkward at first, but I got over it. Now, the number boards are horribly done on this locomotive. They're not painted. Well, the number boards are painted, but the letters aren't. And the only way you can see the numbers on the number boards is if the is if the locomotive's lights are on, but when they're off, you can't see the numbers. It's just black number boards. And I feel that's not very, they did not do a very good job on those number boards. You can go behind it once you get the locomotive. Once you get the locomotive, you can go and paint in the letters yourself, which I'm going to do here soon. But I feel that those numbers should have already been painted beforehand. Now, I will take the locomotive. Now, the locomotive here. Okay, guys, here's the box of the locomotive. The box of the locomotive shows you what it is. DCC on board. On the back, it advertises their easy command system. The side shows you all of their features that it has. Main track programming, 28-step speed control, blah blah blah. The packaging, once you get the packaging off, the locomotive is as usual held inside of its own little foam cradle. You take a plastic cover off, and the locomotives pull out. The locomotive's quite well packaged. Now, for the good part, I will show you what's underneath the locomotive's body shell. I'll show you what's under the locomotive's body shell, and show you how it looks inside, what it looks like inside, what the decoder looks like. Now, first step to removing the locomotive's body shell is you're going to take a small flathead screwdriver. Now, since I'm doing this, should I have a foam cradle to hold this locomotive? Yes, I should. Don't do what I'm doing and not have a foam cradle. I do not own a foam cradle, but I should have one. Now, this locomotive, first step, you have to pry the fuel tank off. Now, the fuel tank takes a bit of work. Hold on a second. The fuel tank takes a bit of work to pry off. You get a screwdriver under there, kind of lift it up on each end. Hold on a second. Okay, I have the fuel tank mostly off, and I will just going to want to pull it away like that. See, just like that. Now what we're going to do is that there are two small screws here and here. You take those screws, move the two screws as such. Move my hand out of the way so you can kind of see it here. What I do is I like to take the screws and set them down inside the fuel tank so they don't get lost. Now I'll remove the other screw. As I mentioned, I should have a foam cradle to hold this locomotive when I'm working on it, but I don't, so I'm not using one. And now that the screws are off, those are the only two screws holding the body shell. You grasp the locomotive body like this, and the body just lifts straight away. Now we have the body shell off, we'll look at the locomotive. As you can see here, you have the CAN motor with Bachmann's little letter sitting on it. You have dual brass flywheels here and here. You have here's your gearboxes, and here is the DCC decoder. It's a wafer style decoder. That's one of Bachmann's easy command decoders. And these have this has LED headlights and taillights, but they're like a yellowish tint LEDs, not the traditional blue LEDs. And I really like that. I don't like the blue LEDs. I like your incandescent lights, but I feel I like these better because these are LEDs, so they're a little brighter, and they're yellow tint. So great job by Bachmann on that one. Like I said, this locomotive is well weighted. It's pretty heavy, but not as heavy as I think it should be, because it does, like I said, it does slip under a heavy load. Now, something I want to address with this locomotive: once you put this locomotive on the track without the body shell, this locomotive is pretty quiet. It's a nice, smooth sounding locomotive, but when you put the body shell on it, the locomotive sounds like a coffee grinder. The reason I think I've pinpointed that reason, I pinpointed that reason down to this wire right here. This little wire right here. You can see that this wire sticks out from the frame just slightly, just enough to transfer vibrations from the locomotive to the locomotive's body, making it sound, really loud. And you can see here how there's a bit of I don't know if you can see it here or not with the camera, but there's a bit of a rub mark on the wire where the body shells come on and off. I've only taken the body shell off about twice before this, but you can see there's a little rub mark on it. And if any of you guys have any ideas on how you can relocate that wire, or not relocate the wire and find some other way to reduce the sound, that'd be great. But other than that, this is a quiet locomotive once you get that problem solved. Now I'll put the buy shell back on. So you just take the buy shell, put it straight down, take your screws, and get them here. You'll take your screws, put them in carefully, like this, make sure not to cross thread them, and you will screw them back on. Hold on a second while I put this back together. Just wait 1 second. Okay, that locomotive is back together in one piece. We will take the locomotive and we'll place it on the track, and we'll see how the locomotive runs. We'll go over the sounds it makes. Well, it doesn't make sounds, but I mean the way the locomotive itself sounds. We'll go over any features it has, how well it runs, how smooth it runs, and I'll give you my opinion on whether it's worth purchasing or not. Okay, I think I have the locomotive on the track. So now I will apply track power, and I will show you guys how it works. Okay. Now, first I'll show you guys how the headlight works. I'll turn on the headlight. I don't know if you can see it here. See the headlight there? It comes on and off. It's LED and it's like a yellowish tint, as I point out. And here's a neat little feature the headlights have. It has a dimming function. You go from kind of dim to bright. That little flashing that it makes right there isn't the locomotive, it's just the camera, so no worries there. Here's the rear headlight. You see there's the rear headlight. Camera's a little shaky right there. And as I pointed out earlier, you can only see the numbers when the lights are on, but even then, you still can't see the numbers very well. So like I said, that I'm real disappointed with that, and I feel Bachmann did not do a very good job on those number boards. Okay, now we'll go over how the locomotive runs. Like I said, I'll point out the locomotive sounds. You'll hear it'll make like a buzzing sound. You hear that? That's the sound it makes. So that's not the locomotive, that's something, that's that wire transferring vibrations to the body shell. Now this locomotive has built-in momentum and 28 speed steps built into its decoder. So the low speed isn't the best, but the low speed is good nonetheless. It's satisfying. And this is a very smooth running locomotive. It has a decent amount of pulling power. I said not the best pulling power, but it's pretty decent itself. It's a lot better than previous Bachmann models. I don't know if any of you guys remember those. The cheap pancake locomotives, pancake motored engines. They just weren't very good. And this is definitely a step in the right direction for Bachmann. And see here I have it going at a somewhat low speed around my layout. And I said you can hear that noise, and if you guys can figure out what that noise is, well, I think I figured it out, but if you guys can figure out how to solve that little problem it makes, then my guess can tell me. Because I really don't have the knowledge to move wires or solder them or anything. Ooh. Okay. Now I'll back it up here at a bit of a higher speed. As you can see, the locomotive moves quite well. It's smooth, a little loud until you fix that little problem it has. Then it'll be quiet, but it's smooth, has a good low speed, decent pulling power. It looks good. This locomotive is well detailed, in my opinion, very well detailed for a locomotive in its price range. You can't find another locomotive in this price range that's this well detailed. It isn't intricately detailed, but it has all the details it needs. Now, my opinion on it. Is this locomotive worth buying? Well, yes, I do think it is. For someone that's on a bit of a budget and they're looking for a DCC, a good, smooth, reliable DCC locomotive this locomotive is a very good choice. I recommend you guys should buy one. As I mentioned, I picked this locomotive up for $50, $60. I can't quite remember. Picked it up on trainworld.com for that fairly low price. And yeah, I do feel this is a good locomotive to purchase. It is definitely one of the better ones Bachmann offers in their standard line, and it's arguably one of the better ones Bachmann's offered in the past 10 years, though they have had some pretty good locomotives. Now, some people might disagree with me on that. I mean, the part about this one of the better locomotives Bachmann's has in 20 years. Some people will disagree with me on that, but, you know, whatever. Now, I'd like to wrap up this review, I appreciate you guys for watching, and thanks. Subscribe to my channel, and have a great day.